From 1st January 2026, European Union will start charging countries from rest of the world a carbon tax under Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism or CBAM. This will adversely impact India's $8 billion worth of metal exports to the European Union. According to officials aware of the development, India is considering imposing a retaliatory tariff in response to EU's new carbon tax. EU policymakers believe as long as less stringent climate policies prevail in many non-European Union countries, there is a risk of so-called carbon leakage. Carbon leakage occurs when companies based in the EU move carbon-intensive production abroad to countries where less stringent climate policies are in place, or when EU products get replaced by more carbon-intensive imports. On 13 December 2022, the European Parliament reached a political agreement on the implementation of the new CBAM. EU calls Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism a landmark tool to put a fair price on the carbon emitted during the production of carbon-intensive goods that are entering the European Union in a bid to encourage cleaner industrial production in non-EU countries. Under the Phase 1 of CBAM regime, cement, fertilizer, iron and steel, electricity, aluminium, hydrogen are the products which will be taxed under CBAM. Starting 1st of October, exports to European Union countries of these products from across the world will face added scrutiny. Suppliers will be required to report greenhouse gas emissions caused during production of the goods being imported into EU, and a new set of taxes will be charged on any and all such goods mentioned in the list. As expected, the proposal has triggered trade tensions with the rest of the world. Developing nations are angered by the move in particular, including India, which see this as an imposition of a new trade barrier without explicitly calling it so. A discriminatory measure, this will punish nations historically not responsible for creating the climate crisis. At present, the European Union is still to clear the proposal. CBAM will impact goods from all non-EU nations except those that possess an emission trading system linked to EU's ETS. Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa collectively condemned the CBAM policy as discriminatory in a joint statement issued in April 2021. A senior government official said on condition of anonymity, while men's queries to spokespersons of finance, commerce and industry ministries remain unanswered, officials on condition of anonymity said India would also consider imposing retaliatory tariffs on products coming from the EU. India's metal industry is likely to face a significant challenge because of CBAM, as 27% of India's iron, steel and aluminium exports worth $8.2 billion in 2022 were shipped to the EU. This will get worse as EU intends to add more products and goods to CBAM list. Under the Paris Agreement, developed countries, which have generated 79% of historical carbon emissions, had agreed to bear a greater burden in climate mitigation. But this is being seen as EU's attempt to avoid Paris Agreement responsibilities. According to a GTRI report, CBAM goes against the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities accepted in the Paris Agreement. It imposes the environmental standards of developed countries on developing countries. Instead of helping, the EU will now collect revenue from developing countries through the CBAM mechanism. The EU will use this money as a budgetary resource and not for helping developing countries with climate adoption. Major Indian steel and aluminium makers such as JSW Group, Vedanta and State-run Steel Authority of India Limited are working together to reduce their carbon footprint through measures such as moving away from coal and adapting green power.